structure in 2021 by having both papers being featured, paper one and two. My second point is esteemed judges, honorable members of the opposition. CXC exam, the modified format, was proven to be ineffective and inconsistent in the grades that students were awarded last year. One such example was exposed by the Jamaican newspaper on the 22nd of September 2020, where several discrepancies occurred, where two, for example, information technology students' grades were compared when one student had a grade 1 with a profile of C, B, and C, and the other students received a grade 2 with a profile of A, and C. Does this inspire confidence in this result? Further, our very own Minister of Education confirmed in a press conference in February of 2021 that 6,251 subject entries were affected, where over 500 students in Guyana has requested a review. And this review showed that 556 grades has been changed. Mr. Speaker, honorable judges, this review were only done for students who paid. What about the other graduates? These
I'll have to cut
inconsistencies
you off
have
because
no
you're almost
legitimate
a minute
question
over.
about
I'll
whether
have
the
to cut you
graduates
off. I'll have
receive
to
the
cut you
grade
off.
that is the true testimony of their abilities. Therefore, we are convinced that the methods used to evaluate these students were inconsistent and created doubt
I'll
as
have to
to
cut
whether
you off
they're
because you're
competent as their
almost
grades
a minute
reflect. And
over.
therefore,
I'll have
we
to cut
believe
you
that
off.
students who
I'll
graduated
have
during
to
the
cut you
pandemic
off.
will not be taken seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Malaika. The first speaker from the opposition is Ms. Sharmila Solomon from the Linden Superstars Youth Group. Sharmila, you're on. Thank you, Malaika. The first speaker from the opposition is Ms. Sharmila Solomon from the Linden
Shamla,
Superstars
you're
Youth Group. Sharmila, you're on.
Speaker, can you hear me?
yes, you're on.
A pleasant morning to you all. Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection states that organisms must adapt to their environment to ensure survival.
Yes, you're
This
on.
is known as survival of the fittest. This same theory can be applied to us in this perilous time. I stand before you this morning strongly opposing the moot, which states, and I quote, students who graduate during the pandemic will not be taken seriously, unquote. Allow me to define key terms of this moot, all according to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. These terms are students, graduate, pandemic, and seriously. A student is a person who studies at an educational institution. To graduate means to acquire an academic degree or diploma, or in simpler terms, to elevate from one level to the next. A pandemic is the outbreak of a disease over a wide geographic area. And finally, to be taken seriously means to be deserving of respect and attention. Now, to redefine the mood, a person who studies at an educational institution and acquires an academic degree or diploma will not be taken seriously during the outbreak of a disease over a wide geographic area. As the first speaker of the opposition, I will be introducing my team's argument. Our second speaker will focus on the psychological effects and benefits of studying online during the pandemic. And our final speaker will provide you with substantial evidence while solidifying our argument. Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic, which is caused by the SARS coronavirus 2, was first identified in Wuhan, China in December 2019. However, Mr. Speaker, this is not the first pandemic to have ever occurred. We have had a series of other pandemics, such as the 1918 Spanish flu, the 1957 Asian flu, the 1968 Hong Kong flu, and the 2009 swine flu. Despite all that has happened, the economy progressed until we were faced with the current pandemic. Currently, this country is working to acquire herd immunity by ensuring every eligible person is vaccinated. In the meanwhile, honorable judges, measures are being put in place to ensure the continued functioning of the education system. The economy progressed until we were faced with the current pandemic. Members of the proposition, the current mechanism to assure such is online learning. In case you did not know, members of the proposition, in order to graduate, one must be qualified by meeting all the academic criteria of the institution you are attending. Failure to do so results in failure to graduate. Considering all the psychological effects of studying online during a pandemic and graduating despite it all, it is obvious that students who graduate during the pandemic should, will, and must be taken seriously. In addition to that, with all the investments being made by the government and other entities, it is undeniable that services will be required, albeit the time or the season in this growing economy. Mr. Speaker, honorable judges, misleading proposition. Are we going to sit and wait until the pandemic is over to make a move of progression? With the rising demand for human resources in Guyana, the pandemic will not, and I repeat, will not deprive qualified graduates from using their skills to ensure the elevation of Guyana. With that being said, I stand undauntingly before you to assure you that Guyana will not be left for desolation, wiping this independent nation off of the map. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Solomon. The second speaker for the proposition is Mr. Trevon Melville. Trevon, it is your turn to make your contribution.
Existing
The second
argument by
speaker for the
first
proposition is
re-registering our
Mr.
claim.
Trevon Melville.
Students graduating in the
Trevon,
pandemic
it
will
is your
not,
turn to
and
make
I
your
repeat, will
contribution.
not be taken seriously. Dear elected judges, it is no secret that the lack of practical work has been more than the lack of practical work has more than concerned many. According to the Open Journal of Social Sciences 2020, number 10, it was confirmed that laboratory tests, practical tests, performance tests are all impossible to conduct online. Though some may want to argue that students have resumed practicals, it is just simply not the same. For example, the students of the University of Guyana Medical Students Association have confirmed that the clinical rotations have been reduced from 10 weeks to 6 weeks. 10 weeks to 6 weeks, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the dictionary of the Oxford online has the meaning of the word competence as the ability to do something successfully or effectively. Learn audience in the very wise opposition. According to Brazilian Journal of Medical Education, the medical students' clinical competence increases considerably during this phase, thanks to the direct contact with real patients under direct supervision of medical personnel. But yet, Mr. Speaker, we are expected to take our graduates from the University of Guyana seriously. But how can we, if we lack the necessary experience to graduate as a doctor? Moreover, tenacious judges, according to the St. George's University News and Events website, their students did not, and I repeat, they did not reduce the number of practical hours required, but instead these very students were asked to defer their semester. Now, this scenario is the same in every other field which has or require practical experience. Now, the University of Guyana actually adopted this same approach, whereby the Faculty of Agriculture, the Natural Sciences, as well as Social Sciences, and the Faculty of Earth and Environmental Sciences. Now, listening audience, to paint an analogy, would you trust a pilot who has 1,000 hours of practical experience rather than a pilot who has the required 2,000 hours? I bet, I bet the answer to that would be a resounding no, since the operative word here is competence. Attentive audience, there is a Chinese idiom which states, and I quote, as well as careful planning, it is necessary to have the right skills and ability to do the job. There is no point in carrying out a system of active to do it well. End of quote. Mr. Speaker, the pandemic has clearly exacerbated this use of this. Hence, we, the proposition cannot go against our stance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trevon. The second speaker for the opposition is Ms. Chisara James. Chisara, it is now your turn to make your presentation. Please go ahead. Opposition is Chisara James. Chisara, it is now your turn to make your presentation. Please go ahead.
Hold a bit, Chisara. We're not getting your audio. Hold a bit. Hold a bit. Could we get you to unmute and restart? Unmute and restart. Unmute and restart. Hold a bit, Chisara. Unmute your mic, your audio. Chisara. Hold a bit. And restart. Unmute and restart. Unmute and restart. Hold a bit, Chisara. Unmute your mic, your audio. Chisara. Hold a bit and restart. She's still muted?
Your mic is still muted.
Mr. Speaker, there were some technical difficulties.
Let's bear with Chisara a moment so they can sort out the audio. Can our administrator send them a message about the mic? The microphone, Chisara. You good now?
We are discovering some technical difficulties right now concerning the mic.
So bear with us, we're encountering some technical difficulties with Chisara's mic. We're trying to sort that out. In the meanwhile, just to remind you, this is the Speakers National Youth Debating Competition, and we are now coming, this is the final day of the first round, day 4, and we have just the 7th debate. I think earlier I said the 5th debate in this series, this first round. Is it okay now, Chisara? Testing?
It's still working, still taken on to.
We're still getting some issues. We're going to reconnect in a minute. The two teams today are Small Steps Big Impact Youth Group from the West Coast, Zelas the Virginusian, and I think they have an import too from Georgetown, Campbellville area. And the second group is Linden Superstars Youth Group, comprising 12 superstars, 12 elite members, 5 are executives. We're trying to sort out the audio for Miss Chisara James from the Linden Superstar Youth Group.
Are you getting her?
Could we see if we can get back the first speaker from Linden Superstars and use that? While we're sorting that, let me introduce Ms. Carlotta James, who will talk a bit more about the competition. Ms. Carlotta James will speak a little bit about the Speakers National Youth Debating Competition as we sort the audio.
Recognizes the need to promote a broader awareness of institutions of democracy, particularly the parliament, among our young people. Out of this recognition, birthed the National Youth Debating Competition. This competition serves as a feeder into the 6th Annual Youth Parliament 2021. Rather than having participants in Youth Parliament being students of the University of Guyana only, this competition will allow for broader participation among young people in civil society. The competition involves 48 participants from 16 youth groups across the education districts of Guyana. These groups were nominated by the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. The competition, moderated by the Honorable Speaker, will see 15 sessions of debates. 4 sessions will be held each week, on Tuesdays and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. The debates will be adjudicated by a total of 9 capable and erudite judges who were organized in pools of 3 and who will be rotated over the duration of the competition. Each competition must have rules. The rules of this National Youth Debating Competition are: participants must be present 10 minutes before the commencement of the debate. 15 minutes lateness would result in disqualification and an automatic win for the other team. Each team must consist of only 3 members, all from the same youth group. Failure to comply will result in the disqualification of the team. Once a team has started the competition, no member should be replaced. The first speaker will be the first speaker of the proposing team, followed by the first speaker of the opposing team, and it will alternate in this order. The times allotted to each speaker are as follows. First speaker, 4 minutes. Second and third speakers, 3 minutes. And the rebuttal will be 5 minutes. The rebuttal must be done by only the first speaker on each team. No new arguments or materials should be introduced into the rebuttal. 10 points will be deducted for introduction of new arguments. A bell will be rung first to indicate that the speaker should commence. The second bell will indicate that 1 minute is remaining, and there would be a final bell when that time has elapsed. 5 points will be deducted from each speaker who does not adhere to the allotted time. In the event of technical difficulties, a speaker may be allotted additional time. This is at the discretion of the judges. Speakers may refer to notes but should not read them. 5 points will be deducted from any speaker who reads a prepared speech. Points will be awarded for reasoning and logic, originality, relevance, mechanics, articulation, development of argument, development of points, attitude to opponent, and cohesion. There must be keen attention paid to subject and verb agreement. And finally, the judges' decisions are final. This competition is not without reward. With regard to prizes, I am pleased to inform you that 24 participants out of the total of 48 winners of the first round of this competition will advance to become members of Youth Parliament 2021. Every participant would receive a certificate of participation, a youth debater's pin, and special tokens. Prizes include trophies, plaques, cash and electronics, and will be awarded to the best debater in each round, all semi-finalists and finalists. I have the confidence that we could look forward to very meaningful and robust debates over the next few weeks. Honorable Mansour Nadir, Speaker of the National Assembly and moderator, will now take us through the debate. Best of luck, everyone.
James, who is the chairperson of our organizing committee. We are trying to get the audio fixed so that we can have Ms. Chisara James from the Linden Superstars Youth Group to make our presentation. She is the second speaker for the opposition. Chisara, are you hearing me now?
Mic test, Mr. Speaker.
Okay,
Can you hear
Chisara,
me?
let me introduce you and then we can take it from the top. So our second speaker from the opposition is Ms. Chisara James. Chisara, you can go ahead.
Mic test, Mr. Speaker. Students who
Okay,
graduate
Chisara,
during the
let me introduce
pandemic
you and
will
then we
not
can
be
take
taken
it
seriously.
from the top.
Honorable judges,
So our second
members
speaker
of the proposition,
from the opposition
Mr.
is
Speaker,
Ms.
I will
Chisara
be
James.
elaborating
Chisara,
on the
you can go
mechanisms
ahead.
that are put in place to facilitate online learning. In addition to that, I will highlight the benefits of online studying. According to a Stabrook News article 2020, the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the American State and Profuturo Foundation, has introduced the training of teachers for online learning. Benefits of studying online, according to HEAP 2017 and Broderick 2019, are flexible schedule and environment, self-discipline and responsibilities, low cost depth, career advancement, improved technical skills. The pandemic did not introduce the psychological effects of studying. Effects such as anxiety and depression was present since before the pandemic. However, students still persevered and became qualified to graduate. An assessment on higher education learning effects during the pandemic by L was published in February 2021. The assessment proved that there wasn't any significant difference when online learning was compared to face-to-face learning. The assessment compared face-to-face learning in spring 2019 to online learning in spring 2020. Mr. Speaker, with all these measures put in place to ensure the continued functioning of education, it is definite that students who graduate during the pandemic will exhibit improved performance. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Chisara James. The third speaker for Stewart. Ms. Stewart, you're on. The third speaker for
Mr. Speaker.
just give me 1 second. Norris, go ahead, Norris. You can start now.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. Students who graduated during the pandemic will not be taken seriously. I take this opportunity to present to you the main points, the main challenges these graduates are faced with in the business community to further prove that they will not and have not been taken seriously. A Michigan State Collegiate Employment Research Institute did a survey which was released in September 2020 and found that of 2,408 employers, 25% of them have exceedingly limited their intake of recent graduates, and another 25% of these Survey companies do not plan to employ these recent college graduates at all. Now you may ask yourself, why? Why is this so? Naturally, employers and business owners seek to make their business suitable to the public. As such, they hire the most efficient employees that could better serve effectively and efficiently. Now more than ever, employers require persons with a skill set that can easily adapt to the role of their job in little or no transition time, which raises a major challenge for recent graduates as they have little or no experience in the world of work, which they would have rightfully acquired under their normal academic curriculum via their practical and internship. It is no secret we were unprepared as a nation for this pandemic, so why should we trust these systems put in place in a rushed manner? Have these teaching systems and grading systems been piloted before, or are we going to just have to trust and believe that it will work and that these students will be competent in their respective fields? Absolutely not. How preposterous it would be for us to even consider taking these graduates seriously. So, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude by saying it would be naive of us to even pretend we didn't comprehend the magnitude of this disadvantage that's caused on these graduates. However, as Albert Einstein cautioned, and I quote, education is not the learning of skills, learning of facts, but rather the training of the mind to think. End of quote. Listening audience, I leave this quote with you to resonate in your heart and in your mind. Remembering our stance that students who graduated during this pandemic will not be taken seriously. Thank you. Learning of facts, but rather...
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Stewart. And the final speaker today and the final speaker for the opposition is Mr. Sean Duggan. Sean, it is your chance now to make your presentation. Go ahead, Sean. We're hearing you.
Honorable Speaker, esteemed judges, members of the proposing team, viewers across the air. I, Sean Duggan, rise as a third speaker to cement this argument that students who graduate during the pandemic should and must be taken seriously. The shift from physical classroom attendance to online learning has brought out the best benefits and attributes one needs in this technological advanced society, which the world is heading into. Mr. Speaker, with the use of computerized systems, the government of Guyana was able to deliver the shift from education learning to the very remote communities of Guyana. And this would have not been possible without the use of technology. Mr. Speaker, the evidence. According to an article published by the Mr. Speaker on May 19, 2021, states that the Commonwealth of Learning, Commonwealth of Learning, or course, and recruitment initiative started in 2020, provided 10,000 Guyana courses certificates. The Ministry of Education also secured an additional 800 scholarships for Guyana. The government is currently investing millions of dollars into the Gold Scholarship, which is providing 85 online programs according to the Department of Public Education 2021. Students who graduated from the Bertram Collins College are currently employed in government agencies such as the Ministry of Health and Office of the President. Students who were awarded scholarships in 2016 graduated from the University of Guyana first. Students who graduated virtual ceremony in 2021. Those students started working in government agencies such as the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Education, and the list goes on, Mr. Speaker. Students, not forgetting students who graduated in the year 2020, who are employed in the private sector. Mr. Speaker, the CSEC examination rate increased by 2.99% from the academic year of 2019 to 2020. Mr. Speaker, judges, how could the proposing team propose such an argument when knowing the fact that today's workforce is heading online. A survey conducted by the Society of Human Resource Management stated, and I quote, the number of professionals who work from home have increased by 159% over the last decade. Judges, audience, here's the evidence. It is clear that learning cannot be only achieved by one method. Learning can be achieved through many channels. So I rest my case that students who graduate during the pandemic should and must, and I repeat, should and must be taken seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean. And those were our 6 presenters in this 7th round of debate, in the 7th debate in the first round of our competition. We are now going to give the 2 teams 5 minutes to get their thoughts together for the rebuttals. The rebuttals will start with the opposition. Ms. Sharmila Solomon will lead off from the Linden Superstar Youth Group and will be followed by Ms. Malaika Russell for the proposition, and her group is Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group. As we give our debaters an opportunity to get their thoughts together, first I want to ask the debaters to only use one device. If you are logged in to Zoom and have your microphone open on more than one devices, it's causing a terrible feedback, especially for those who are looking at you and listening to you via the different social media platforms. And people all the way from Alaska in the north, and I don't know how far we're getting in the south of the globe, are tuned in to today's debate. As I'm speaking about those online, here are some of the comments that we've had. Mr. Leon Bailey Beaton congratulates those who selected the moot, saying it's an excellent moot. Havindra Sukraj gives his best wishes to all of the speakers. Akisha Aklima Mohammed also sends her good wishes to everyone. Mr. Beaton loves the energy, and Mr. Jermaine DeHart is congratulating the entire team on a great job. Those are some of a selection of some of our social media commentaries for this competition. This is the Speakers National Youth Debating Competition. It is the first round. 16 groups are involved in the first round, 8 debates. This morning, we have just seen the original presentations from 2 teams, and we are waiting the rebuttals. This afternoon, we conclude this first round with the 8th debate in the competition. It's been exciting, vibrant, and of great interest among our young people. We want to commend at this time the participants who at short notice have been able to prepare. We want to also express our sincere gratitude to the Minister of Youth, Culture, Youth and Sport and the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport for their cooperation in selecting the youth groups. We have 8 of the 10 regions represented in these 16 youth groups that are participating in this competition. Exciting prizes are on offer, including trophies, certificates of participation, and for the finalists, tablets, cash incentives, and for the best debater, a laptop computer. Today we have three distinguished judges: Ms. Valerie Gurusamy-Smith, who is the Chief Judge, a University of Guyana lecturer, debating coach; Ms. Monette Garnett Christopher, the Chief Administrative Officer of the Parliament Office and a distinguished Toastmaster herself; and Ms. Miracle Miller, who is a member of the Georgetown Stabroek Leos Club, a best debater in the Youth Parliament 2018, and also a participant in the United Nations Youth Assembly that was held in Manhattan in 2018. The mood today was students who graduated during the pandemic will not be taken seriously. We are preparing for the rebuttals at this time, and within a minute we'll be asking our teams to get their thoughts together, finalize their comments, and be prepared to start the rebuttals. Linden Superstar Youth Group, Sharmila, are you ready?
Okay, there we go. Yes, Mr. Speaker.
The opposing group is Linden Superstar Youth Group, and the rebuttal is going to be done by their first speaker, who is Ms. Sharmila Solomon. Sharmila, you can go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, Sharmila.
Yes. Honorable Speaker, erudite judges, misleading proposition. Allow me to carefully dissect some misleading statements mentioned by the members of the affirmative team. The first speaker mentioned that COVID affects standard assessments of students. As I mentioned before, we must adapt to this to the time in which we are faced with the COVID-19 pandemic. We need to adapt. The first speaker also mentioned that students assessed by the CSEC were affected. It is obvious we were not prepared, or we were not expecting a pandemic to occur at this time. So measures are being put in place, as I mentioned earlier, to facilitate the continued processing and functioning of the education sector. In addition to that, the first speaker of the proposition also mentioned that CSEC was proven to be ineffective. If it was proven to be ineffective, why is there a 2.99 increase in the grade from 2019 to 2020, as Mr. Duggan mentioned? Erudite judges, the second speaker of the proposition also mentioned that there is a lack of practical work. While I mentioned we are trying to achieve herd immunity by having every eligible person vaccinated, it is obvious that things are going to change. With this being said, he also mentioned that the rotation was decreased from 10 weeks to 6 weeks. With that being said, it is obvious and expected that that should happen due to this pandemic. At the end of the day, rotation is still being done, and we should adapt to ensure that the education system continues to function. In addition to that, the University of Guyana Medical School students and agri students, as mentioned by this speaker, are not the only students studying during this pandemic or being affected. We also have to care for other students in the business sector, which is currently hiring. And the final speaker of the proposition mentioned that business community, focus on the business community. The business community is not the only community functioning at this point in time. They also mentioned that the business community does not plan to employ students who graduate during the pandemic. However, the second speaker mentioned that there is a rising demand for medical school students, so we should also focus on them and ensuring that measures are in place put in place to ensure their continued functioning and processing. The third speaker also mentioned that we are unprepared as a nation and systems are put in place in a rush. At the end of the day, members of the opposition, systems are put in place. We did not expect the pandemic to come upon us just like that. So it is obvious that things would be done in a rush to get things back to functioning. And finally, the final speaker also mentioned that education is the training of the mind to apply skills. However, at this point in time, there is no other option to adapt and continue to function and ensure that things are being done to ensure the progression of this economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sharmila Solomon. And I now call on Ms. Malaika Russell from Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group to make her closing comments, her rebuttal. Malaika?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Honorable judges, worthy opponents, today you have sincerely attempted to misguide us and confuse us as to whether these students will really be taken seriously. I would first like to reiterate our stand that students who graduated in this pandemic will not be taken seriously. First and foremost, the opposition stated that online learning is beneficial, but refused to outline how practical sessions was done online. Again, I would like to reiterate my team's point. With 1,000 rather than 100 hours that was required. The first speaker stated that an academic criteria was met. However, this is simply not the case. This criteria, as I would have highlighted, was reduced to suit the current pandemic and the circumstances surrounding such. It is no doubt that this pandemic is a challenging time, especially for students. However, this should not reduce the quality of the students that are produced. Might I remind you, keen judges, wise opposition, and the listening audience. My second speaker highlighted areas in which universities reduce their numbers of practical sessions. However, it is understood that the other universities that we have made a comparison did not, I repeat, they did not, in this particular example with the doctors, they did not reduce the number of hours that were required. It is important that when we assess these students, that we know for sure, without a doubt, that these students are competent. Students didn't meet the required number of practical hours, and they should not have been graduating. The first speaker also mentioned that Ghana's economy depends on graduates. However, I would like to ask, esteemed judges, what happens to our economy if these graduates are able to efficiently apply? Our third speaker also confirmed that employees are already doubtful that these new graduates are competent enough in their skills. The second speaker mentioned that students did not have psychological effects during this pandemic, but however, they stated that psychological effects has existed prior to the pandemic and provided no proof to say that the students' mental health was not affected in this pandemic. The third speaker also made reference to a university in Burton College in 2016. Therefore, this situation cannot be relevant because in 2016, we were not faced with the COVID-19 pandemic. He also mentioned that students that traditional teaching is not the only method for teaching to be done. However, in meaningful learning, were these methods that were utilized effective and efficient to prove that students were learning meaningfully? And might I remind you that it is not the method that was used to teach the children, but these examinations that are standard in order to thoroughly evaluate these students as to deem them as being competent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Malaika, and that completes our presentations from the two teams today. We have to give our judges an opportunity to summarize their scores and come up with their decisions. In the meanwhile, let me remind you who are today's judges. Our judges today for this debate are Ms. Valerie Gurusamy Smith, our Chief Judge, and Ms. Gurusamy Smith is a very experienced debater, debating coach. She is a lecturer at the University of Ghana. She has been an educator for over 42 years. Our next judge is Ms. Monet Garnett Christopher, the Chief Administrative Officer at the Parliament Office. Ms. Garnett Christopher has an MBA from the Australian Institute of Business. She has a degree in economics. She was a member of the Toastmasters Club. And our third judge is Ms. Miracle Miller, an active volunteer in the Georgetown Stabroek Leos Club. Ms. Miller is the best debater, or was the best debater for our Youth Parliament 2018. She is pursuing a BSc degree in Applied and Exploration Geology. She'll find our next gold mine in Guyana. And she has been an international debater participating in the United Nations Youth Assembly held in 2018. So we have three very distinguished, qualified judges this morning. The two teams are the Linden Superstars Youth Group out of Linden and the Small Steps Big Impact Youth Group, West Demerara, covering the area from Virgin Nugent to Zealous. As soon as our judges cue me that they are ready, we're going to bring our judges on. Let me apologize for the little delay we had. Our television stations that are carrying this broadcast has booked it for an hour. So I want to apologize to them and ask them to bear with us. We had some technical difficulties connecting with some of the debaters. And this is one of the challenges with the e-format of communication instead of the in-person meetings. Our judges, I see they are now in a huddle, so it looks as though they're about to make their final determinations. We have, at the end of today, 8 teams will advance into the second round, the quarterfinals for the debating competition. And those 8 teams will be rounded off this afternoon at 2 when we have the final in this first round, the 8th debate in this first round of competition. Our staff has worked hard in a short space of time to ensure that we can execute this program of activities for the Speaker's National Youth Debating Competition. This competition will feed participants into our Youth Parliament, which will be held the second week of August this year. Parliament in 2015 began the Youth Parliament, and that Youth Parliament has been well received. It has 2 segments, one for the older youths and young adults and one for school children. Both sessions will this year be held once again. Last year it was suspended due to the pandemic, And this year, however, we are going to be having the Youth Parliament once again. Our team organizing this competition comprises the staff of Parliament, headed by Ms. Carletta Charles, who is doing the coordination. And so far, the comments coming from social media has been very, very commendable. I just see one person on social media saying it's a tense competition today, right? There are judges busy with their finalizing of their decision or decisions totally. Our chief judge today, Ms. Valerie Gurusamy Smith, and supported by two other judges, Ms. Monet Garnett Christopher and Ms. Miracle Miller. Both teams who are waiting for the decision, as Miracle Miller knows, miracles can happen. So just stay tense, but relax. Today is the fourth day of the debates. We've just concluded the seventh debate in this first round. Debate between the Linden Superstars Youth Group, of course out of Linden, and the Small Steps Big Impact Youth Group out of West Demerara, Zealot to Virgin Nugent. The mood was students who graduated during the pandemic will not be taken seriously. We have 16 teams drawn from 8 regions, and they were all identified with the kind cooperation of the Minister and Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. We express our appreciation to them. Our judges are ready. Let me introduce Ms. Miracle Miller to give her comments today.
Good morning, everyone. First, I'd like to congratulate each member that presented. And I'd just like to say that excellent points were put forward today. However, from one of the teams, I found, that the topic was not focused upon. They strayed a bit from the topic, and this was pointed out in one of the rebuttals given. I noticed that some persons, when they were giving quotes, they failed to say, I quote, and some points that were given, they didn't have sufficient evidence to prove what they said. So even if you brought forward an argument and you did not bring sufficient evidence to back it up, that argument could not be used. Some of the arguments were vague, and we did have exemplary English. It was shown by one of the teams. I would not elaborate on which team, but all in all, it was a very good competition, and as Mrs. Speaker would have said, it was a very tight one, a very close one. But we did come to a conclusion and a winner, and I'd like to thank you all for participating, and it was very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Miller. Ms. Monet Garnett Christopher, our next judge, please, for your comments.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, colleague judges, teams, and viewers. Congratulations to both teams as well. In a debating competition, you must be able to define the key terms, list your points, and develop relevant arguments. But I think this morning there was a great challenge with respect to relevance. The topic as to why or why not students should be taken seriously, I don't think that was adequately addressed. I think more justice could have been done to the moot. Some of the presenters were over the allotted time, and that is something you need to pay close attention to as well. In terms of mechanics, there was good use of the English language. There was good subject and verb agreement as well. But I think in terms of articulation, there were too many hand movements at certain times, and some of you are also reading from the materials, and so you need to pay attention to that as well. In terms of cohesion, I think it was lacking too in the arguments. But as we can say, best of luck to all of you, and may the best team move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moneth. Our final judge and chief judge is Dr. Valerie Gursami Smith. Madam Chief Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Fellow judges, those in the audience, debating teams, you have treated us to a discussion that I do not think ever took place at any public forum. It's a novel topic, it's a new thing to discuss a pandemic. There's a future tense in the moot that was not touched by any of the debaters, but the truth remains that you were taking up a topic. Students who graduated during the pandemic will not be taken seriously, So somehow you expect that debaters would have sampled the views of organizations and find out what are their views. However, I want to congratulate both teams for rising to the occasion to handle such a topic with such a futuristic tense. Because we do not know as yet, we don't have statistics, yet they predicted. One team did explore relevantly to research ongoing discussion on the methods of continuing with education. I think both teams did mention that education continued even though the pandemic sprang upon us suddenly. But like one of the judges on the panel also already said that there were some points that were not relevant, and there were some points that were even mentioned, but they were not backed up by, I don't want to say relevant, but the evidence could have been backed up with stronger authority. So one team did use data, did use statistics relevantly, coherently. Both teams did treat us a discussion. I'm sure we all, as chief judge for this competition, I pondered on the topic myself, and some of the points made by both teams, one more than the other, did coincide with some of my thoughts on the topic. So all in all, I want us to congratulate both teams for taking up the topic. I want to congratulate all the participants. Some were more fired up in the discussion, some were uncertain, yet we keep in mind that debating in this fashion is not the ideal, so we did give some space for like the transmission situation, the internet situation, but all in all, we had a good debate today, and we should congratulate you. But like every competition, we have to come up with a winner, we have to come up with a best speaker, and we have to come up with a better rebuttal. And in light of that, it was again not a hard task, because we have judges who are qualified. You heard the designations, you heard the experiences. So again, we were able to agree on matters. so far, I have not been faced with 2-to-1 and stuff like that. We all came up with the same conclusion, which is really good. So this afternoon, again, I want to congratulate the team for the challenge, for taking up such a novel topic, something that's new to us. I think both teams brought that out. And the gap is not that much. So this afternoon, we do have a winner. We do have a winning team. We do have a best speaker. We do have a better rebuttal. I want to announce the best speaker among the 6 presenters, both opposition and proposition, is no other than Miss Narissa Stewart. We give best speaker to Miss Narissa Stewart. Give her a round of applause. She did a good job. She exhibited debating skills. She had eye contact. And again, as an English lecturer, teacher, educator, I would say, like the other judges, I was very impressed with the expression. I was very impressed with the choice of words. And Miss Narissa Stewart did show forth the caliber of a good speaker. Congratulations, Miss Narissa Stewart. The better rebuttal went to the proposition. Miss Malika Russell did a good job to pick out points and did try her best to show how they were not supporting the arguments. At one point, I thought the opposition was actually giving the proposition some points to support, and those are things we have to pay attention to, that we don't sell out the arguments. And in light of that, the scores today goes 84.3, 94.7, which rounded off is 95 to 84. And the winner of today's competition with the topic, I don't want to misread, students who graduated during the pandemic will not be taken seriously. I want to say that this topic with a futuristic outcome, the winner goes to no other than the proposition. Congratulations to the proposition for taking today's debate to another level. Let's give them a very big round of applause, as well as the opposition. I congratulate them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, honorable judges. The winners today are Best Speaker, Ms. Narissa Stewart. Best Rebuttal come from the Linden Superstars Youth Group. Comes from the proposition, Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group, Ms. Malika Russell. And the overall winner for this morning's debate is the Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group, coming out of West Demerara, Virgin Nugent to Zelos. Congratulations to all of the debaters. Congratulations to the superstars, and our congratulations also to Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group. Thank you very much. See you all at 2 p.m. when we conclude the 8th debate in this first round. Thank you very, very much.
Wow. Good job.